and what a difference a day makes. Today does actually feel like an autumnal day. For a moment, I thought we weren't really going to have autumn and we're going to go directly from the height of summer straight into the depths of winter. So it's lovely to have a more autumnal feel to the weather today. We have had some light nighttime lows over the last couple of nights. So the night before last, we went right down to 3 degrees in the greenhouse, and last night it was 4 point something. And it does mean we have had a couple of light frosts here in the cut flower garden, but luckily they have been light frosts. And so far, the flowers, or few flowers that I do still have for cutting, have managed to survive. Last week, when we were having an awful lot of pretty stormy weather here, it wasn't just wet, but it was really windy. And when the plants are fully grown, like they are at this time of year, do you find that there can be quite a lot of damage from broken stems in the wind. And it was one of those times where it was just taking me so long to cut an order, because I do scrutinise the flowers, because I want to be sending out things that are top quality. And it was taking me so long to cut any orders that I actually made the decision to just call it a day. I've gone ahead, I've put everything out of stock. I've changed my answer phone message to say that that's it for fresh flowers. And then you come out to the garden on a beautiful day like today. And in fact, yesterday afternoon, I cut a whole bucket of straw flowers looking absolutely fantastic. And you think, well, why did you do that? Why did you stop? Surely you could do an order. And you know what? At a push, I think I probably could. But I've drawn a line under it. We are done. And one of the reasons I've done that is because actually this season, more so than ever, I've realised there are some evident flaws in my succession planting, because there's not a lot to go with the dahlias. There's Dorcas, which was a later succession, Feverfoo. There's of course the lovely annual Rudbeckias, and a few of the autumn sown scabious are giving me a second flush, but really that's about it. And there are a few things I've barely cut this year, the Amaranthus hot biscuits being one of them. And I mean, this is a real time of year where you'd think I'd be turning and ready to use it, but I've not used it. Now, I did really like to use the Ushberg and the Red Army, and you can see if you look at the crop which one I have been cutting and which one I haven't. Now, although I'm not going to be taking any new orders for fresh flowers, I cannot just go crazy now and start preparing for next year, because I do have the odd order still sat in the diary that I need to fulfill. So it's a sort of a moment of limbo, because I'm desperate to start clearing, and actually I think there are at least 2 beds I could clear and start planting up. But everything else I've just got to hold back and just wait until I've finished the orders that I've got in the books, and then I can get to work on next season. And the good news is that I do have timber to raise up at least 3 of these beds, which will make them suitable for perennials. 6 beds here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is one that's totally done, that can be cleared. 5, and then 6. And I can raise 3 of them for perennials. And I think I'm going to raise the 3 next to the raised beds here, not only because then it sort of makes sense, but because this is particularly wet here, here, and here. So that's great. So when I do clear them, we can get on, get those raised, and then they'll be all ready for some of my new perennials. And if you've seen my top 10 perennial video, you will know that I'm a bit of a fan of the gooseneck loosestrife. It's great for weddings, but I've been using it a lot in retail as well. And I grew the purple version, which Latin I will pop on the screen for you. And I grew it, but it didn't flower until the following year. So it flowered this year. And I loved it. It was absolutely wonderful. So I can't believe I've killed it. So I can't remember how many plants I had. I think I probably had 8 or 10 plants, and they're all dead. So I have two choices. The cheapskate one, which I sort of started doing, is they still went to seed, and there is ripe seed on there which I could sow, but then of course they're probably not going to flower next year. I'd have to wait until the following year. Or do I order small plants in 9cm pots, which are obviously significantly more expensive, especially since it's quite easy to grow from seed? So I'm so annoyed with myself, and I haven't quite decided what to do about that. But what I do know is that I definitely want to grow it again. I really loved it. So not only am I going to be growing more perennials, but I'm going to have to reorganise and redistribute the ones that I've got. So they're all going to need to be dug up this autumn into winter and be divided and be moved. What I'm doing at the moment is researching the light that these perennials need, the soil that they're happiest in, because my garden here is not right in the middle of the field. So to give you an idea, if you're new here, this is north over here. When I'm moving the perennials or where I'm going to put annuals, all that sort of thing, which is all in my head at the moment, I do have to think about, well, it's a bit shady over here. And not only that, the hedge does steal moisture from those end beds, because these are really established trees here. You know, there's 2 large oaks. So the soil's also dry, so it's dry shade over here. And then when you get into the middle of the cut flower patch here, it's very wet and poorly draining, which is why I want to really concentrate on raising those beds up. And then again, over in this top corner of what is already perennial, so believe it or not, this is a rose bed. You can barely see the roses. This borage is completely self-sown, and do you know what? I just left it for the bees. I'm a bit of a softie for the bees, but it will need to come out so that I can prune and tidy up the roses shortly. But this willow hedge here does the same. It makes this bed here very dry. So I need to consider which perennials will not mind the dry soil. So I am thinking things like the echinops that I've got growing on, and the sea holly I've got growing on, but obviously I need to get my research right. I mean, things like astrantia, I think they probably don't mind a bit of shade, so I might be able to move those more that way. But my head at the moment is full of right plant, right place, because of course they're only going to thrive and do well if I get that right. So I'm not going to go ahead and dig anything up until I've finished all of my research. Now, all of the perennials that I already grow, and many of them listed on my top 10 perennials, have actually been pretty happy where they've been planted in here. So the other thing I need to do is make sure that I don't upset the things that are already relatively happy. And of course, with me wanting to have more of an emphasis on growing perennial plants in this cut flower garden, it is making me really shorten the list of annuals that I grow. And because of that, I think I've decided that some of the annual foliages that I grow, I may not grow anymore, even though I really like the chickpea this year. I really like the gold of pleasure. I like the Greek cress. I'm thinking of growing some shrubs instead. Now, it's quite likely if I'm gonna, I have been taking cuttings of things like my brachyglottis and my pittosporum, but I'm not gonna be able to cut from those for a few years. So what I'm saying is I probably will continue to grow those things until I have shrubs of a size that I can cut to replace my reliance on those annual foliages. And of course the raspberry that I have is fantastic because that is perennial, and what I don't cut I get raspberries from. So something that's dual use like that is fantastic. So this very weedy, messy bed at the back here, I'm actually planning that this is going to be put to shrubs, which obviously are going to take time to mature. So what I intend to do is plant it with shrubs, and then I will interplant it with other things until the shrubs get to such a size that I can cut them. And then I am so reliant on my biennials in that dreaded May-June gap. So I think I'm looking to have 2 biennial beds down this end, because of course I'm going to make the entire half that way perennial, and that should give me a nice amount of space to grow a really good selection. And of course some of you may have seen that I've already planted some of those, if possibly temporarily, but because I've already planted them they are growing on nicely, but of course I can still move them to their more permanent position. So in amongst the weeds, these are my dianthus here, looking pretty good. And do you know, I can feel they have had a frost. And then we move on to wallflowers here. There's quite a few wallflowers in there. And then the Canterbury bells are here. And again, they just look so much better than they were in the pots. Quite a few Canterbury bells, but actually only the odd foxglove. And that's because I don't find I cut a lot of foxgloves, and that's because I do predominantly do retail, and I don't think people like to see them in retail bouquets. So really I'm growing the odd ones because I like to make arrangements myself with them. So then the rough plan is, yeah, we'd have 3 beds of annuals here, a bed of biennials, a bed of biennials, a bed of perennials, then 2 beds of dahlias, and then quite likely another bed of annuals. And the reason I don't want to just go ahead and ditch the annuals entirely is because some of the perennials I'm going to be planting are going to be young plants, and they are going to take some time to establish and start producing me the number of stems that I'll need for my orders. So I think it would be rather foolish to just forget the annuals altogether, because of course many of them are cut and come again, and they are highly productive. They're very reliable and they will be there for me when I need them. But of course, if I'm only having the 3 smaller beds and 1 large bed of annuals, and actually probably the digger tracks where I currently have the dahlias, that will probably be annuals as well, I'm not going to be able to grow all of the annuals that I grow at the moment. So a lot of time has been going into my top annuals, which of course will be the ones that I'll be growing for 2026. And I will of course create a video for you explaining the varieties I've chosen as my top annuals and why I'll be growing them. And that'll be coming some point over the next few weeks. And then this year, those of you that will follow me will know that I've had 1 dahlia bed down here in the cut flower patch, and then I've also had some dahlias in some raised beds made of digger tracks. I've really regretted having my dahlias in 2 places. It's not helpful when I'm cutting orders. So I'm actually going to end up having 2 dahlia beds down in this garden next season.